Welcome back to the Proximity is Power podcast. We got Shoney Ivens in the house today. Shoney, thanks for being on, bro.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Shoney and I met like a month back at a Tony Robbins event and just connected and stoked to talk to him today. Here's a little bio on him. So he's a leader in real estate and entrepreneurship. He is the CEO of a top Keller Williams franchise here in Utah. He leads over 300 plus agents who've closed over $4 billion in sales in just over 4 years. After overcoming homelessness, Shoney led large sales teams in door-to-door industry and helped scale TV and security companies before becoming a top producing agent and investor here in Utah. Today, he coaches entrepreneurs on building scalable, systems-driven businesses, all while staying grounded as a husband and a proud father to his 9-month-old son. So, Shoney, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Shoney, so just going way back. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I actually grew up in Provo, and I'll say the west side of Provo, right, which is far different than kind of Provo proper. But I had 2 younger brothers. I'm the oldest. Had one that's 18 months younger than I am. So we grew up honestly as best friends. Like we hung out with the same group. And then I have a younger brother who's 7 years younger than I am. And he's the one that unfortunately we would beat up and, kind of terrorize growing up. But yeah, grew up in Provo.
Heck yeah. Growing up, did you know what you wanted to do when you were older?
Not at all. No. Now if we go back to like my childhood, it was kind of a roller coaster. Both my parents battled different challenges, when I was between 7 to 9 years old. And that kind of just shook things up. It was always a rocky ride growing up. Both of them battled drug addiction for different reasons. And my dad was kind of in and out of jail at that time. And so my mom, as a single mother, she had a lot on her plate. And she also was just dealing with a lot. My grandmother had passed away, and that kind of sent her through this like spiral. And so at that age, like I didn't think anything of the future. It was more about like just survival around like, how do we fend for ourselves right now, put food on the table, things like that. When I was 11 years old, my dad kind of got out of jail, kind of cleaned himself up a little bit, which was really a blessing in disguise because a couple years down the road, my mother actually ended up getting sentenced to 7 years in prison. And so me and my younger brothers were kind of in a weird limbo place where we were almost split up by the state. But luckily our dad was in a good enough place to be able to take us back and honestly change the whole trajectory of our life because he was in a clean enough place to be able to take us. So yeah, my childhood was kind of weird where I didn't even think about like the future. I didn't think about when I'm older, this is what I'm going to do. It was more about just like trying to fend for ourselves and survive.
That's wild. What do you think that did for you? Like going through that type of background versus like a lot of the generic Utah family.
Yeah. Well, it definitely created I would say a different level of hunger. Like for me, early on, I always realized that like if there was something that I needed, like it was 100% up to me. When I was 16 years old, there was no like, hey, here's a car, here's a cell phone. Like I had to pay for all those things on my own. And so it created a different level of self-reliance. I also, at that age, between 11 and 14, there was different times where we were evicted, kicked out of the places we were living. And so there was a lot of uncertainty at that time of my life. And I think that what it's helped me to do looking back on it is actually become very okay with change. I actually thrive in environments where there is a lot of uncertainty or unknown because that stuff doesn't faze me or spark a lot of fear. Whereas I think that another component of it is that it's also built a level of grit and determination where like I never want my kid to ever experience anything remotely close to what I grew up with. And so that's caused me to say, well, I'm going to achieve everything that I can in this life so that he has a very different lifestyle. And also the last piece is I just think that for me, it's done a lot of analyzing. Like I don't have any, anger or animosity towards my parents. I did when I was younger. I had a lot of anger problems in high school and middle school from those experiences. But now, like, I've come to kind of terms with it, realizing they were just going through a lot of pain at that time of my life. And they were just trying to numb the pain or remove it. Like, they weren't trying to actually hurt me or my brothers. And so for me, like, a lot of forgiveness has come through it. And so it's taught me so many different principles and perspectives that I wouldn't have gained otherwise had I had everything just be smooth sailing my entire life.
Wow. Tony Robbins talks about that all the time. Like, you only act out of inspiration or desperation usually. And so I think for most people that are like the most hungry, and Tony talks about this, like, we're very deprived. And that just created all this hunger to go be more, to create more freedom in your life, to do what you want to do. So, and then you go through that childhood, and then what are you thinking after high school, or like, what are your plans?
That's really where things changed. So we didn't grow up members of the LDS Church, but when we moved in with our dad had, again, completely changed his life while he was away, and he ended up getting married to somebody who was a member of the church. They went and, a year later got married in the temple. And so when we moved in with our dad, we actually started meeting with the missionaries. And I was maybe 14 and a half roughly at that time. We ended up getting baptized. And so, between like 14 to 18, we were members of the church. And I ended up going on a mission when I was 19. So served in Arkansas and Tennessee. And it wasn't a foreign language, but it was a foreign language. And
culture shock. Yeah,
totally. Yep. And that's really where, like, I feel like the future of my life changed forever. My mission president was a wildly impactful individual. And up to that point, like, in high school, everybody labeled me as kind of like a troublemaker or the class clown, which they didn't really understand everything that happened at home that kind of caused that. And, but it wasn't until my mission president where he would always say this quote, and he would say, if you treat a man as he is, he'll remain that way. If you treat a man as he could be and ought to be, they'll become who they could be and ought to be.
Wow. And
he would say that over and over again, but I didn't realize he was actually practicing that on me. He put me into different leadership positions, which I didn't see myself, as a leader at that time. And I was his assistant for 7 months. So I spent a lot of time with him. And I started to realize, like, there's a different way to live life. And he was very successful financially. And so I started to ask these questions in my mind of, like, well, how do I be like him? Right? When I go home, instead of going back to kind of the childhood upbringing that I'd been a part of, how do I actually have some sort of success? And what does that even look like? And essentially I was having a conversation with him about, like, well, at my exit interview, what are the things I should take away from this experience, and what should I go deploy to get results when it comes to success? And he basically just said, these are the 3 best investments that you can make. And he said, number 1, invest in yourself. He said, you will always pay the best dividends. And at that time, I didn't really understand, exactly what that meant. But it for me wasn't necessarily the college route. I did a college right when I got back, a semester of college at UVU when I got back from the mission. And I was never, like, the person that was great in the classroom. I just, like, couldn't stay focused, didn't do great with homework, that kind of thing. And so I didn't really feel like that was the path, like, internally, but didn't know how to express that. And it wasn't until I had somebody approach me about door-to-door sales, and I saw that as a path to just develop skill sets. So I said, hey, I was already knocking doors, obviously doing it for free. Why not go get paid to do it? And their pitch at the time was, go make enough money so you can pay for school. So my mindset was not that, like, hey, I'm going to be a career door-to-door salesperson. It was that maybe I can go out in 4 months and make some good money to pay for my way through school. And maybe I'll figure out, like most college kids do, like, what my path is going to be. And so that was the kind of initial journey. Is I started to realize in door-to-door that it wasn't just about the skill sets of sales that I was developing. There are a lot of other benefits that came from door-to-door sales, the mindset, the grit. Like, I was naturally every day investing in myself. And so we can get further down that path, but that was the first investment he said to make. The second one he said was network equity. He said, the people that you surround yourself with, the people you connect yourself to, are going to be the next level of investment that can pay the highest dividends. So again, at that stage, I kind of understood like, hey, there were some people that I hung out with when I was in high school that are probably not the best to continue associating with or hanging out with because there's maybe a fixed mindset, or maybe they're not going down the path that I want to go down. And so I started to gravitate towards who are those type of people that I want to be around, which ultimately led me to this path of like finding mentors. Who are the people that 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road I want to be like? And how can I kind of follow in their footsteps, right? There's this idea that success leaves clues. And so if you can just find people who are winning in not just business, but any kind of area of life, if you want to improve your health, right? Find some mentors or people who are doing really good at health. If you want to improve your relationships, find people who are great with relationships and mimic that. And so that's kind of the second philosophy that I adopted, which was that I'm always going to try and surround myself with the best people in the different areas of life that I'm trying to grow in. And then the third investment that he said to make was real estate. and that's kind of what planted the seed that I had no clue how to get started with, investing in real estate at 21 years old. But it was, Tony talks about the reticular activating system, your RAS, right? So my mission president had planted the seed and just made me aware to think about real estate as a potential investment. And it wasn't until about 3 years into my door-to-door sales career where I had a great mentor who said, don't come home and blow your money on the nice car, the nice watch, those things. Instead, come home and buy rental properties. And so that was where it's like, oh, here's the path, right? Let me go make as much money as I can in the summer and then come back and buy 1 or 2 rental properties every summer. And that really just kind of supercharged my sales career.
What a cool mentor to have at such a pivotal time in your life, you know? I didn't go on a mission, but I have so many friends that like just got so much value and mentorship from their, mission president. And it changed the trajectory of their life. And it sounds like your life as well.
100%.
Dude, those three investments that he taught you are money. Like that's like some of the best advice he could have given you. Like invest in yourself, invest in relationships, network equity, and invest in real estate. And I think a lot of people, when they think about invest in yourself, it's like, how much dollars are you putting in, right?
Yeah.
Like you only value where you spend your time, your money, and your energy, right? And like so many people think about like investing in yourself, like buying the book or buying the seminar or buying the, mastermind group. But you saw it as like investing time and energy, like doing door-to-door sales is an investment in you because it's an investment in you developing skills that will pay you more in the future, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's an investment of your time and your energy. You're sacrificing a summer to go learn a skill set.
Yeah.
And then network equity. That's the whole thing about proximity is power, the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's like some people are power and some people could be poison to you depending on their mindset, their goals. And people don't think about that enough and then invest in real estate, right?
Yep.
Dude, that's really cool. So you got back from your mission and you just kind of had those 3 guiding principles, I guess, to go become like your mission president. And then you do door-to-door sales and you did that. How many years did you do sales?
Did that for 7 years.
Wow.
Again, starting out, that wasn't the idea. Was that, I'm going to make this a career. But as most people in that space realize that it's kind of the golden handcuffs, you can make a substantial amount of money in a short period of time. And so, initially the skill set that I focused on the first year was just my own personal sales, which I wasn't great, but I was probably, top 20%, for rookies. And it started with security. The second year I got into the idea of like, well, leverage, right? If I bring a team, if I start bringing people out, then I can make money off of their transactions as well. And I can do good at mentoring or coaching them and helping them with their skill sets. So I brought 10 people out my second summer in security. And we went to Virginia Beach. I'll actually jump back for a second. My first summer, we go out to Dallas, Texas. And this was with Protection One, Pinnacle. And we had about 25 guys that went out there for the summer. And it was hot, muggy, and most of them were rookies. I'd say probably 95% were all rookies. And our manager, it was his second summer. And 3 weeks in, he decides that he's done. He's quit. And we already had like 10 people fall off by that timeline. But he decided to go home. And, we're not even completed with the first month. And right then, basically almost everybody else decides to leave too. And so it ends up being basically 3 of us left, me and 2 good high school buddies. And we're like, well, like we're out here. The reason I had stayed is because I left a door-to-door or a call center job, a sales job. And one of the remarks that the manager made when I left was, nobody is successful in door-to-door, or basically you'll be back.
Wow.
And for me, that was enough fuel. Or I was like, if I have to eat PB&J, like I'm going to stay out and finish this summer.
Prove him wrong.
And to prove him wrong. And so our regional manager flew out and he's like, hey, obviously there's no more office left. There's 3 of you here. So he made us drive from Dallas, Texas to LA. It was like a 24-hour drive. And where they had another team that was more experienced reps. And he's like, just know, like, it's not organized because these guys are all like heavy hitters. They just kind of do their own thing, but it's better than you guys being here by yourselves. So we went out there and went out to LA and finished the summer. I think I'd sold like 60 transactions, 60 alarms that year, which was good, for my first year. And I made like $43,000. And I was like, for me, I was stoked, right? Because I was like, I have never even seen that kind of money. Not even my parents were making that kind of money when I was growing up. And so for me, I was like, well, what if I actually get good at this? Like, what if I actually invest time into studying sales, influence, and persuasion, and really just like hone in on that craft? And I was going to school my first semester. My thought was to go into school for psychology. I was like, there's a lot of kids like me who grew up maybe not having, a lot of resources, who maybe didn't have a lot of attention or time from their parents. And so my thought at that point was, I want to help other kids who are like me. So I want to help them to start thinking bigger and start thinking about what's possible for them down the road, similar to what Steve had done for me. And, but then I started to kind of do the math and I was like, well, how much am I going to make doing that? And could I just go make way more money selling, door to door and give my time and give money to helping people in those kind of situations? And so, yeah, it basically just doubled down on saying, I want to perfect the sales skill set, and started to build a team. My second year, again, I had 10 people that went out with me. And then my year 3 is when I decided I really wanted to scale on the team side. And I just looked at it kind of side by side and said, it's a little easier to help newer sales reps with a different product than security. It's a different level of sales. And so I pivoted, transitioned into satellite with DirecTV, and we ended up having about 40 people go out that second summer, or that third summer for me. And it was awesome, phenomenal. And so that's where I really fell in love with the leadership side of door to door. And I loved like competing. Like I've got it in my DNA to, be a competitor, and I love being at the top of the leaderboard. So I was always leading by example was my focus of like, how do I be number one? I was always number one in my region or my office for production, but I also wanted to be, in the top 5 for the company. And so my last year door to door, I had 65 people between 3 different offices. And I was still out there on the doors. I still sold. So all 7 years I was out there and loved it. And it wasn't until I really was like, I love the real estate thing. Cause by then I'd had like 9 single family homes, 5 here in Utah, 4 in Alabama. My wife and I really got focused on the real estate investment side. And that's when I was like, man, I love real estate so much. And this actually is a perfect kind of transition into a different industry. And so I pivoted out of door to door in 2020.
Wow.
So right after COVID.
Really cool. And did you drop out of college after your first semester? Yeah.
My second year, I made like 103,000 in door to door. And I was like, I can go. And this was like, I realized I was still an infant with learning sales, right? So I was still just getting started.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what if I just keep focusing on this craft and get really good at this skill set? And so I went that path, and then I got on the leadership side, right? Which unlocks a new level of skill set that you have to develop, which is helping other people close the gap, right? Helping them to develop skill sets, which actually became kind of a challenge that I liked, right? Figuring out there's so many different mental roadblocks that people run into, right? Where they have limiting beliefs, or maybe they have a challenge developing a certain skill set, and you have to figure out as a leader how to keep people motivated, help them, really get clear about their why, what's a driving force for them, and then help them create the skill set that gets results, right? So for me, that became a fun journey that I focused on the last 5 years of my door-to-door career.
Wow. You're a beast. You did a lot of things right. So many reps just blow their money. So many reps just want to be a sales rep. They don't see the vision in like leading people and helping people and growing as a leader, right? And you kind of caught that vision and executed at a high level. It sounds like that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like it always ties back to like I chose the right mentors. Like at every stage of my career path, I've just had the right people in my life at the right time, and they've just given some guidance, some counsel that has allowed me to show up and be able to thrive. So I have to tie a lot of the success. Obviously, I had to go out there and take action on everything that I was learning, but a lot of it had to do with I had the right people show up, and I took advantage of those situations.
I love it. So you leave Door to Door with the focus to be like full-time real estate investor, pretty much.
Mainly real estate investor. Yeah. And just, I had a lot of friends from Door to Door who would reach out and say, hey, I know you're buying all these properties. We want to do the same thing. Can you help? So it was kind of an accident. I didn't plan on selling real estate in that way. It was more of, I had my wife get her license as well, just to do our own transactions. And it wasn't until I had like enough people say like, I got so passionate with teaching them, right, the strategies to buying rental properties. And people kept saying, why are you not in real estate? Like, I could tell that you love this space, and kind of got into the point where I was like, why am I not like actually just selling real estate at the same time that I'm buying it as an asset? And so it was the end of 2020. I still had a big group go out 2020. So it was the end of the year where I decided, okay, I'm going to pivot full time into selling real estate. So 2021 was my first full sales year as an individual producer here in Utah, and did 36 units. I built a team at that time as well, and the team did about 50 units. So it's just under 100 collectively.
That was your first year.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yep. Average realtor probably sells 3 transactions.
About 4 to 6 in Utah.
So you just implemented everything you learned from Door to Door and just hustled.
100%. So Door to Door was like the skill sets that you develop. That's the one thing, going back to that initial point of like investing in yourself. Skill sets are the thing that will pay you forever, right? And a lot of skill sets transition into different industries. So that was one thing where all of the practices, the processes I learned in Door to Door, 100% translated over into real estate. And really it was kind of a perspective where I was doing something that I enjoyed doing, which was talking about real estate investing, right? How do you analyze deals? How do you find good properties? And I was already doing that for myself. So I just started showing other people how to do it. So it was very easy to find clients who just needed help with buying rental properties.
Where would you tell someone to start that wants to invest in real estate?
Well, one, I would just say like, get started. There's so many people have a fear, right, about getting started with real estate investing or any kind of asset investing. And there's kind of two different sides of it. Is one, like Warren Buffett talks about not investing in things you don't understand, right? There's so many different resources available that are out there, right? One of the great books to read is The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. And that's the book that I studied. And it just gives you a clear roadmap. That book talks about how do you build $1 million in cash flow per year from a rental, from a portfolio. And most people don't have $1 million cash flow goal. They might say, I just want 50,000 a year or 100,000. Great. The strategies in that book outline step-by-step how you can get there. And so first is just like study it, right? There's different meetup groups that talk about real estate investing. You had Matt on Atkinson, right? So he's the president of UV RIA, Utah Valley Real Estate Investment Group. They have meetups every month just to talk about real estate investing. And so just like get involved, start studying the right resources. There's so many podcasts out there, Bigger Pockets. I think you had Brandon on here as well, which is awesome. So like start studying and consuming those resources that help you to become familiar with it. And then find a good mentor, right? Somebody who can say, hey, I've been there. I bought my first property and I can show you the ropes on getting started with it. I usually recommend, especially with higher interest rates where we're at right now, a great place to start off if you're in a position to do it is house hacking, right? So buying something with a basement apartment. My first couple properties were that way. My wife and I lived upstairs. We'd rent out the basement apartment. It helps subsidize the monthly mortgage payment. And that's a great way to get started. You only have to bring 3 to 5% down for the down payment. And then you can start looking at trading properties up, kind of rolling them, trading them for bigger properties over time. And so you can go from a single family home to a duplex, or from a single family home to a fourplex, but just start somewhere.
I love that. Get educated, get around people that have done it, and go learn from them. So you just crush it your first year, and then it's just, you're off to the races pretty much.
Yeah. Well, then after that first full year, so I got my license like November 2019. So I sold like one transaction December, so a month later. And then it was 2020 where I was still in door to door. So I was mainly focused on that. So I did 14 units that first year while leading my door to door team. 2021 is where I really went full-time real estate. And then in December is where the ownership group of this Keller Williams franchise asked me to be the CEO. Wow. So I stepped in, kind of transitioned out of the solo. I still produce. I still do some production every year, but my main focus now is coaching and consulting our top agents.
What have you learned doing that and your career?
And well, over this last, roughly 4 years, I probably had 1,500-ish agent consulting or recruiting appointments, where either I am coaching an agent at our office and helping them figure out the gaps in their business, what challenges they're running into, what roadblocks they're hitting, or I'm having a conversation with an outside agent. And same thing, right? Figuring out what are the biggest challenges that they're facing in their business. That comes to either, most agents want one of two things. They either want to earn more money, or they're happy with their production, but they want their time back, right? They're working 60 hours, 70, 80 hours a week to get the results that they have. But they're saying, how do I do that, but do it in significantly less time? And so ultimately what I've learned is to become a super advocate of, like, I don't want to call it balance. I don't think you can ever achieve balance in life, but it's kind of a healthy way to build a business, which is through leverage, right? Through tools, systems, team that allows you to have a really high level of output in production, but do it in a way that doesn't kill you, right? Where Gary Keller, founder of Keller Williams, he talks about, if you're making $1 million a year, but you have to work 80 hours a week to do that, you're cheating. You're either cheating your health, you're cheating your family, you're cheating some other area of your life, because you're not giving it enough attention in pursuit of this, success financially. And so the question is, are there people who have figured out how to be more productive in less time, right? And that's where we look around every industry, and you find, for example, in real estate, 90% of the income that comes through the real estate transactions goes to about the top 10% of producers, right? There's the 80-20 rule. That is kind of a staple blanket, which is 80% of the results come from 20% of our actions. Well, in real estate, it's like a 90-10 rule. And so the key indicator of that, though, is like, I'll take a step back. If you ask people what the biggest challenge is, typically, it's that either they're not earning the amount of income that they want to earn to fulfill their lifestyle, or that it's they're earning great income and their time is just non-existent, right? And so I think the biggest framework for entrepreneurs to lean into is saying, well, what are the things that I actually want when it comes to health, my relationships, when it comes to my long-term wealth building investment goals? There's not a ton of real estate agents that are also investors. Funny enough, this is I think they have a strategic advantage. They should be real estate investors, but there's not a large amount of them that are. And so, but yeah, ultimately, those are the kind of some of the biggest things that I've learned, is that what are the strategies that allow you to become more efficient and effective? How do you actually produce more, but do it in less time? And going back to that idea where, the top 10% of agents are earning 90% of the income. Well, the difference is that they're deploying specific strategies that are getting that result. And there's also some agents who are making a great amount of income, $500,000 to $1 million a year, but they're doing it in 35, 40 hours. And the key is leverage. They have the right systems, tools, and team in place.
I heard, I think it was Alex Hermosi podcast, but he said, yeah, every time you jump in income or your business, you're just getting better at leveraging certain things, right? And he talks about the 4 things you can leverage. One is like code or like technology. Yeah. Second is collaboration. 2 minds are better than one. For sure. And like having other people do things that maybe you're not best at or you don't like doing.
Yep.
Third is capital, like leveraging your own capital, other people's capital to make more money. And then four is content. If you have a big enough brand, like your business will be bigger, you know? So I love that. And it sounds like you just help agents get clear on what they want, where they are right now, where do they want to be? And then you help them implement strategies to either free up their time or help them make more money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's,
awesome.
it's really simple. There's kind of two different routes, right? How do we scale and get better results? And that comes down to a skill set gap. We're in a skill-based industry, right? And so agents who develop the right skills usually get the better result. And then we're in a systems-based industry as well, right? Where you want to have the right systems or processes, procedures in place that allow you to have your time back. And I think one of those big pieces that is shifting right now for almost any industry is the leverage piece of AI, right? Artificial intelligence and how that's being used in business. So that's a big proponent that we're focused on at Keller Williams is how do we help agents be AI empowered and help them to use those tools effectively so they can get their time back, but also earn more income.
Wow. What's the hardest part about being a leader? Like you lead 300 plus agents, right? Like, yeah. What's the hardest part for you or biggest challenge?
And it's kind of a double-edged sword because part of it comes down to like, there's so many different, with that many people, there's a lot of life challenges that come up. And so like just knowing how to navigate and show up for people, right. In a way that, helps them to navigate life. We've had so many different situations occur the last couple of years where an agent passes away or they have a kid pass away or, they're facing financial challenges. And like that for me is probably the hardest part, like is just trying to help people navigate. Cause I feel it right as a leader as well. And you feel for people. And so like trying to, create an environment where it empowers and helps people through those unique challenges. And so that's kind of a unique perspective. But the other side of it is like there's so many different personalities and trying to really help coach people and meet them where they're at. But also going back to that initial quote that I said, right? If you treat a person as they are, they'll remain that way. If you treat them as they could be and ought to be, they'll become who they could be and ought to be. And so it's kind of this constant dance, right? Between you've got to go and find people where they're at, meet them where they are, but then you have to help coach them into going in the right direction to meet kind of the person that they could become. And for me, that is a skill set that I feel like I'm still kind of a toddler at, right? Where it's like, I'm developing the skill set, but I think it's a 30-year long journey of figuring out how to master that. And that's a big part of why I'm in Tony Robbins, program is to really learn how do I help people create radical change in their life. And not just from a financial perspective, but from a holistic approach.
I love that because I agree with you. And I think like I lead people too. And I think it's hard sometimes. I feel like you and me both are like born with like this inner hunger and inner drive, right? And some people just, it doesn't seem like they were born with it, right? And so you have to help like pull that out of them.
Yeah.
Because I heard something the other day that said like, your level of motivation is the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And most people say they want to be here and they're here, but they don't really. Like they rather just stay comfortable in where they're at than push to actually get to the next level, Yeah. So I guess how do you motivate agents?
See, that's where maybe this might be a limiting belief on my end, but I'm kind of on the camp of like, you can never actually motivate somebody.
Yeah.
Like you can sometimes inspire them, but that's such a fleeting, like it wears off, right? They come to a sales training or an event, they're pumped up, they're excited, and it lasts for like a week or 2 weeks, right? And so I think I'm more on the side of like, you actually have to ask people the right questions for them to get clarity around what they do want or what they don't want. And that in itself, that becomes their own motivators. So you can't externally motivate them, but you can ask the right questions that help prompt the perspective shift, right? So a big side of it for me is I always try to help agents identify what is their goal, their target, and then what is it actually going to cost? Like, I don't know if you've ever done this. Like I like shopping at like Lululemon, right? I love the quality that they provide. And there's times, I don't know if you've ever been in this position where you go into the store and you're like, I like that jacket or I like those pair of shoes, whatever it is. And in your mind, you say, if it's $120, like you already have a price attached to that item. And you're like, if it's $120, I'm buying it. And you flip over the price tag and it says $350. And you're like, nah, I like it, but not that much. Right. And I feel like people, especially entrepreneurs, do the same thing when it comes to their goal. The challenge is they don't flip over the price tag and look at what is it going to cost for me to achieve that certain outcome. So for example, if I want to earn 500 grand or $1 million, well, there's a price I have to pay to be able to get to that finish line, right? So what I want to do with people is ask them the right questions up front of like, first, what is the target? And then, okay, let's do the math. Let's reverse engineer. What are the action steps you're going to have to take to actually achieve that? And let's decide now, before you take it to the register, do you want to pay that price or not? Because there's plenty of other goals that we can kind of get clarity on, right? So that's kind of the perspective that I go through is like, let's find out what the target is. Are you willing to pay the price? If not, like, don't wait till the end of the year to decide you're not willing to pay the price. Let's just decide that up front and readjust the goal at the beginning, and it makes it a lot easier.
I love that. And yeah, some people say, yeah, I'm willing to pay the price, and they pay the price for that day or that hour or that week or that month, and then they stop. You know? It's like, dude, this is what you told me you wanted. This is like the actions you need to take. What's happening, right?
Oh, for sure.
No, that's really good. So you're the CEO of a company, you're a husband, you're a father now. How, I know you said you don't believe in balance, but how do you do it all?
Well, that's probably the number one skill set that I've been really focused on the last 2.5 years. Once my wife and I decided like, okay, we're actually going to like start, we've been married for 7.5 years, almost eight years now, and started to think about, having kids. And for me, the one thing I realized is like, I want to be a present father. Right. And I also want to have a really different lifestyle for my kids growing up. Right. Like I want to be at every, softball game or basketball game or football or whatever sports they decide to choose. And so I've been like maniacally focused on how do I become really effective and efficient with my time? How do I maximize and get the most results, but with the least amount of output, right? Leverage. And so that's where a lot of like tools and systems, technology, AI, for example, I have a couple Airbnbs and 95% of the processes are outsourced to either AI or to my VA, right? And so a lot of the last couple of years has been me being really focused on how do I just build systems. Tony Robbins, I went to his business mastery. Matt Atkinson actually recommended me to go. And that's where Tony talks about, are you a business owner or are you an operator, right? Are you the one that's doing everything to run the business? And so that's where I really started to say, well, what does it look like to have the right tools or systems or people, team members in play that gives me flexibility? And so for me, it's just like carving out time on my calendar where I time block everything really. And so I have my family time on there. And in like this past weekend, we just went out to California, went to Carmel, and we're able to hang out, as a family for Easter weekend. And so for me, it's like, okay, I can shut work down, right? And be able to focus on my family because I have the right systems in place. And it's never perfect. Like there's some times where me and my wife know like, hey, I've got a deadline for this big event or, big goal that we're focused on. So I've got like a month that I've got a sprint where it's like, I'm going to be late nights, I'm going to be early mornings, but then we're going to take off. Right. And we're going to have that us time. So I think it's never about perfect balance, but it's about saying what area of your life, your health, your wealth, whatever it is, needs the most time and attention in that moment, and just being purposeful, making sure it's an intentional decision, not that it's just like, yeah, I just work all the time, 365 days of the year. We need to have, and for me, like Sundays are my way to like reset. Like that's the family time. Whereas like the other 6 days of the week, it's a balance between the different businesses and things that I run. And so, ultimately I think it's just about getting clarity about what's important, what area of life or business needs the most attention right now, and kind of just bouncing between the different parts.
I love it. And like you said, like there's different seasons where maybe you'll be more work heavy or more family oriented. So, and just understanding that and prioritizing certain things and being intentional. So you've been a platinum partner with Tony Robbins for 2 years now, right? Yeah. It's over 100,000 with all the traveling and stuff. So why do you do that? And what have you learned? Yeah,
great question, man. There's, I've been in different masterminds since like 2016. So when I really was like, I'm going to be a leader in the door-to-door space, that's where I was like, I need to develop this leadership skill set thing. And like, I need a coach or a mentor. And so I joined this group out of San Francisco. It was called Epic Impact or Abundant at the time. And Sam Taggart actually was the one that recommended them. And so I got into that group, and we would do quarterly breakouts, usually in San Francisco or somewhere, a different state, wasn't in Utah. And so that's where I started to just get this, like, going back to my mentor's original guidance of like network equity and the investing in myself. Both of those needs were being met, right? By going to these events. And with Tony, like, he's been a mentor of mine, digitally for over a decade, because in door to door, I would watch his YouTube videos, and that would help me to kind of reframe my mindset and perspective. And it was 2017. My wife and I went to Unleash the Power Within, went to UPW the year after we got married. And, that was her first experience with anything like that. So it was kind of like overwhelming, right?
It's a lot. Yeah.
And I kind of like just didn't go to any other events after that, until Matt was like, hey, you should go check out Business Mastery. And that was right after I'd taken over the CEO role at KW. And so I was like, absolutely, like, I need to sharpen that skill set of being a business leader and really running a business. And so went to Business Mastery. And for me, it was kind of a no-brainer because of the quality of people that were in the room, right? And then also I just had this perspective of like, if I were trying to be a great basketball player, like, how much would I pay or invest to be mentored by Michael Jordan? Right? Like, I want to choose the best in that space. And for me in business, I feel like Tony Robbins is the elite when it comes to understanding business and wealth building at a high level. And so for me, I know it's a big investment, but I feel like it is paid me in multiples through network equity and through some of the strategic investments we've been able to get to through that network.
Couldn't agree more. He's dominated the space, and he's done it for 40 something years now. Right.
Yep.
And everyone I listen to, even that's living right now, that's like mentor or like a guru, right? Almost all of them tie back to Tony.
Yeah.
Like even Robert Herjavec, I was listening to a podcast of his that he was on. I think it was with Lewis Howes, the School of Greatness. And he talked about how he was like at this plateau in his career, went to Unleash the Power Within in like the late 80s or early 90s, and he just skyrocketed. And I'm like, I've known Robert, I've watched Shark Tank forever. I didn't know that, like, even him tied back to Tony. So it's just cool to see the impact. And he's not only mastered like one area, he's like learns the principles and how to master all areas. So that's why I love it.
Yeah. My wife, we went to the relationship retreat that Tony had in Maui, and that was the end of 2023. So October. And that was her, that's 5-ish, 6 years later, whatever it was, from our first event that we went to. And she was kind of hesitant. She's like, I'm like going because you're telling, you're asking me to go, but like, don't really want to go.
Yeah.
But it was like life-changing for not only our relationship, but just like perspective on life. We realized like we were speaking a different language, right? Like men and women often do. And so that just helped us to like understand each other in a very different way. And so like, if you ask her, like, what was your experience at the event? She tells people now, she's like, it was game changing. Right. I had a date with Destiny already scheduled for December of 2023. And she's like, can I come like at the event? So, it was a phenomenal experience, but there's just like, he goes through different areas, right? Wealth building, the Platt Finance event that we just went to, like just having access to people like you can't usually get in the room with, right?
Yeah.
With Ray Dalio or Steve Forbes, like these individuals that, for me, going back to my initial childhood, like at 14, I never even thought, like I didn't even know those type of people existed, right? From a wealthy perspective.
Yeah.
And so for me, a part of this investment is that it's proximity is power. Put myself in the room with the right people. My mindset is uplifted. My perspective on life of what's possible is completely changed. And so it allows me to come back and really do the things that I need to do in the right way. And really just focus on like, what's the end goal, which is time with my family, doing, hanging out with people that I care about, traveling. I love exploring, and all of that requires capital, right? So how do I do that in an effective way, grow my assets and my income to be able to achieve all those financial goals?
One thing I noticed at finance that was really cool is like, we had Ray Dalio, all these billionaires come speak about different industries and the economy and their take. And I just look back and Tony's even taking notes. Like,
Yeah.
we're lucky enough to be in the same room that Tony is learning from the people we're learning from. Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite habits? Like, what are your do or die habits that you do on a daily basis?
I love reading. Like I hated reading growing up. And maybe it's kind of the type of books that like school encourages you to read. Right. But like I am obsessed obviously with like self-help motivation books, business strategy, things like that. So I love reading. I'm really big on travel. So like anytime that we can before we had our son, we would travel out of the country and try to do one or two, different countries every year. And obviously with Platt, you travel quite a bit. So I think last year we went, 4 or 5 different countries. And so for me, I love doing that. And then when it comes to just like personal habits, it is like the kind of basics, right? So The Miracle Morning is a great book that goes through and just practicing those consistent habits, the meditation, the reading.
Savers, baby.
Yeah. One of the ones I still have actually from Grant Cardone in Door to Door is he encouraged to write your goals down twice a day. And so I have like these little notebooks that I keep, and I started the practice in Door to Door, but I'd write my goals down morning and night, and I write them in kind of a statement of like I have or I am,
like
as if I've already achieved them. And so, which it's crazy to go back and look at like my Door to Door initial goals, that I was setting, 7-ish, 8 years ago, and to see a lot of the things that I have in my life today. And I'm like, it's crazy to just see the impact that has when you consistently tell your mind or fixate on something, and it has a powerful effect to kind of draw those things into your life. So I'd say those are kind of my top 3 is the reading, the journaling, writing down those things that are consistently important to me from a goal perspective, and then meditation.
I love that. Like when you say meditation, is it like priming or like Headspace?
I do a combination, but I use Calm is the app that I use. And that one's just very simple to have. Hey, it's 8 to 10 minutes. They have a guided meditation. But then sometimes I'll do maybe a Tony Robbins like priming method or a breathing Wim Hof type experience to just help get my body into a state.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are 3 books that have impacted you the most?
Ooh, 3 books. I would start with The Alchemist. So that one obviously tells more of a story. But for me, it kind of like is almost a side-by-side version of my life, I feel like, where it's like I feel like I've been on this long journey, and this little boy, for those who haven't read the book, is kind of on this journey to find treasure, right? He's traveling to Egypt to find this treasure, and at the end, what he really realizes is like who he's become along that journey. He has a lot of crazy things happening along the way, but it's like who he's become, the people he's connected with was the treasure. And so for me, it's like, that's what I realize is like the, 15-ish year journey in business that I've been on, like who I've become, the people I've connected with, those are the things that are most important to me. And so that's book number 1. Book number 2, I would say, is probably going to be, man,
I know there's so many.
There's so many different ones that are powerful, but I'd probably just go with Think and Grow Rich. That one for me was important because of the philosophies that I had. A lot of the beliefs that I had growing up, like they weren't mine. They were actually ones that were given to me through my upbringing, through my parents, right, and through conditioning, school, things like that. And so that book has shifted how I just look at life and helped me to create some really powerful, just perspectives. So Think and Grow Rich is number 2. And number 3 is probably 12 Pillars by Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was, one of Tony's original mentors. And in that book, he just goes through some massively impactful philosophy and again, perspective on life. One fourth caveat that I'll throw in there is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
That's a great book.
Great one. Yeah.
I love that. 4. I haven't read 12 Pillars, but one of my favorite audiobooks is the Ultimate Jim Rohn Library. And I think it's like 14 hours of like mixed seminars with, I don't know if it was a book ever, but Jim Rohn's a beast.
He's powerful.
Last question. If you had the world's attention for 20 to 30 seconds, what would you want them to know?
Just 2 things. Very simple. Number 1 is aim high. I think that oftentimes we undercut our abilities and what we think, we're capable of. And so raise the bar, right? Aim high. And then number 2 is, I would just say, like, try to figure out how you can help as many other people get to what they want. There's that classic saying, right? Help enough other people get what they want in life and you'll end up with everything that you want. But I also do just truly believe that that's what makes the world a better place, is when you start looking at, hey, I'm not going to just meet my needs. I'm going to try and figure out how I can help other people as well. And I think it's just a good business practice. So those are the 2 things that I'd say. Beautiful.
Where can people find you, Shoney?
IG is great. So Shoney Ivens on Instagram. And that's the best place.
Go follow Shoney. He's a freaking beast, as you can tell listening to this podcast. He's just getting started. Like, I can feel it. Got that hunger to make a dent in the world. So, dude, love you. Appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast. And I know everybody listening got a ton of nuggets today. So thanks again.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Peace out, boys.